Hey planner friends, welcome back to my channel. This is Rachel from Rachel on Paper, and I'm here today to do a mid-year journaling planner check-in. I have been fairly consistent with some books, other things have changed quite a bit, and so I thought it would be a nice opportunity to step back and talk about what's working, what's not working, and what's changed since I set up the different planners and journals I intended to use for 2025 back in December and January. Now I'm attempting to film this during my lunch break on a work from home day, so my goal is to be pithy and not to make this a long chatty video. So let's start with my planners and we'll try to move this along quickly. So I am only using 3 planners. Most of these notebooks are journals or journals I've abandoned, and my planner setup has remained fairly consistent over the last 3 or 4 months, with the exception of my work planner. I have been in a place of experimentation with my work planner since the beginning of the year. I was using an A5 Hobonichi Day Free. I got a really bad batch of paper and it was driving me bonkers. And I have been experimenting with different work planner setups. And what I'm using right now is this Nolte planner from Jet Pens. This is an A5 notebook and it has this vertical layout with this large sort of like memo notes space at the bottom. I really like this layout. It's one I've really never seen before except in the Nolte planners. And I have seen this layout in Nolte planners from folks online for years now and have always been really curious to try it out. And then I saw that it was available on Jet Pens for an April start planner, and I decided this might be the answer to my work planner woes. As you can see, I ripped out some pages here because I was experimenting with this for another purpose, but I've been using this for my work planner for the last few months, off and on, experimenting and flirting with other notebooks, but largely I've been coming back to this and it's working pretty well so far. It has a monthly layout that I use to keep track of deadlines and PTO, and then I'm using the weeklies to have a sort of running weekly to-do list and some day-specific plans around what I have to do or if I have big meetings that I need to prepare for. And then the other great thing about this book is that it comes with I don't know exactly how many, but at least 100 notes pages in the back. And so you have a lot of space to write extra notes if this is not enough. I've also included just some note paper here from a Midori grid pad in case I need some extra scratch paper. But this is working great for me. It lays flat, which is great, and I really love the Nolte paper. It handles fountain pens really well, and so I'm hoping that this sticks and this ends up being my work planner for the rest of the year. I have this in a cover from Superior Labor. This is from Baumkuchen. I think I've had this for almost 4 years now, and it's held up really well. The stitching has held up really well, and I've used it off and on, though pretty consistently in different A5 books over that time period, and so I'm really happy with this cover. And then my personal planning happens between these 2 books. I have a longer video that I will be sure to link down below where I explain how I use the plotter in the Bible size and the Hobonichi weeks as my personal planner. I think of these as my personal planner like together and I really carry them around together all the time. Let me show you, hold on. So I put them in this journaling bag from Rickshaw. I picked this up last year. I believe this is the ABC collection. I don't know if it's still available, but it fits these 2 books really well, and I throw this in my bag when I'm going to work. Sometimes I'll just bring the plotter, but really I think of these 2 books as a system that works together. And so I have the Hobonichi weeks. This is an April start, and I use this as a calendar for future planning, but also weekly planning. I have a running weekly to-do list. I keep track of what I'm reading on a given week, writing projects, and then I also write down appointments or events or just like things I need to be aware of for a given day. Sometimes I have daily to-dos in here. I've started trying to track workouts in here. So I really love having a sort of weekly layout to reference and using that in conjunction with the plotter, which houses my dailies. So in the Hobonichi weeks, and I'll try to, again, keep this brief, I have a future log in the monthlies, just like future appointments and events. I use the weekly layouts for weekly planning and keeping track of some things on a weekly basis. And then in the notes pages, I have some trackers and collections. I'm still figuring out, or I've still been playing with, what goes in the plotter and what goes in the Hobonichi weeks. And right now my thinking is that I put stuff in the Hobonichi weeks that I don't need to change at all really over the course of a year. Like my cycle tracker, I want to use one for the whole year. And so that goes nicely in my Hobonichi weeks. And I also, I have a wish list, and I usually don't need more than one of these pages in a given year. And so I have things like that in this book, but it's pretty fluid as I'm figuring out, and flexible as I'm figuring out how to use these two together. And since I largely always have them both with me, I'm not that worried about what goes in where. I also have in the Hobonichi Weeks notes pages a monthly dashboard where I just have a running to-do list of things I'd like to achieve that month, and then some creative projects that I'd like to focus on, which includes journaling and working on my Substack newsletter, which I will also link down below, is more book related, but also has some journaling content. So that's my Hobonichi weeks. My plotter is daily planning, and then I have different sections for notes. So the way I think about my plotter, and I really love the plotter, this system is working so well for me. I love the flexibility of this system. The narrow rings make it easy to work with, and this feels super portable. The leather feels super durable. I'm able to carry a bunch of stuff I need in here, and it's been really fun playing around with the setup and figuring out what works. And so essentially the way I'm using the plotter is as a landing place or as a companion to other longer journals that I keep that I don't really leave the house with. So for example, I have a section for reading, but I have a separate reading journal that basically never leaves my house. And so I have in this section the types of reading notes that I want to be able to take on the go that I will sometimes transfer to my reading journal, or just pull out of here and tip in or paste into my reading journal. But these are the types of things that I want to be able to reference while I'm on the go. This is an ongoing list of books that I'm reading and whether I've written a book review for them. And so I have a couple of sections like that. So I have my first section for Substack and YouTube, where I'm doing planning for my content on both of those channels, or for my newsletter and my YouTube channel. And I will sort of write out scripts or write out a draft blog post or outline a blog post. And then I have my daily section. I have this reading section where I have some reading notes and reviews that I will move out of here at some point, but I like having on me. And then recently I created a section for commonplacing. I've been getting more into commonplacing, and you'll see I have a commonplace journal that I've been working on. But again, I don't keep that with me all the time. I don't like having a lot of stuff on me. I feel like I already have too much stuff in my bag or in my backpack when I'm commuting into work. And so this section is meant to be, one, a landing place for some on-the-go commonplacing. So if there's something I want to write down, a quote I come across or something I'm reading, I'll write it down in here, and then again either copy it or just take it out of this binder and tip it into my commonplace notebook. And then I also have a running list of things that I want to commonplace. So for example, I've recently read 2 nonfiction books, Original Sins by Eve Ewing and Black and Blues by Monty Perry. Both were excellent. And I have lots of annotations in there that I would love to transfer to my commonplace book. And so this I'm calling an inbox, and it's essentially a list of things that I want to remember to transfer to my commonplace book when I next have the chance. I've been trying to get into the rhythm of going to sit down at a cafe or the library maybe 2 times a month and transferring things into my commonplace book. And so this sort of serves as a reminder for the things I want to commonplace about. And these are referencing things I've either read already, articles I've read, or topics that I have been doing research on and have some things saved and want to, again, write into my commonplace book. And then last, I have just a miscellaneous section, random notes and lists, sometimes work notes. I really try to separate out work and personal planning. I think about it like an inbox, an email inbox. At the end of the workday, I want to close out my work planner and not think about work. And so not a lot of work stuff makes it into my personal planners, except sort of major events or if I'm traveling, especially in my Hobonichi weeks, I need to keep track of that. And then if I'm traveling, I usually only take these 2 books, and then I'll add some extra notes pages in here and take work notes here, and then I'll take those work notes out and move them into my work planner. Again, we'll tip it in or just staple it in. I'm not really precious as long as I have that somewhere. So that's my plotter. I love her. This is working really well for me. I've been even thinking about getting a second plotter just to have some cover options, but overall, I'm loving this setup as my main planner. And then we've got my journals. My journals are where I have been experimenting more this year. So let's start with my 2, I would say, main journals, and then we'll go into the journals I use less frequently, which is where there's been more change over the last few months relative to my 2 main journals that I have been very consistent with since the beginning of the year. So my primary daily journal is this B6 daily planner from Strelling Ink. It has a dated day per page. It has monthlies and some extra notes pages sprinkled throughout in between different months, and then something like 35 notes pages in the back. And so I am using this for daily journaling, first and foremost. How I daily journal has evolved or is evolving. Right now, it's looking a lot like recording what happens on a day-to-day, writing down highlights, things I'm noticing, just things I want to remember, maybe some short reflections. Sometimes I'll use journaling prompts. I'm trying to move away from using this journal to work through like messy feelings or to rant and vent about stuff. Sometimes I will rant and vent about stuff here, but I want this to be, the intention with this book is for it to be an archive of my year and one that I enjoy looking back on. And while I do go back and read my journals and ones that are heavier on the emotional processing front, I don't want that to be only this. And if I felt like it was turning into that, and so I've been really trying to sort of conscientiously shift towards this being more of a journal that's meant to record things going on, both the good and the bad, but not really like sit and live in the bad, if that makes sense. And then also doing a little bit of creative journaling in here, not a ton, but you know, I went to see Cowboy Carter, and like that has to get documented. That needs a 2-page spread in my journal. And I don't bring this journal with me when I travel. And so I was away for the weekend, and when I came back, I had a bunch of extra notes pages, and it was the perfect excuse to create a more like junk journaling, creative journaling spread. I don't know what you call this. This was a lot of fun. I used, this was from the bag that I got when I purchased some merch, and then I printed out some pictures and used just some extra scrapbooking paper I had. But there's a mix of this and much more often like this type of journaling, which is just, you know, writing down stuff that happens on a day-to-day and using some stickers. And then, you know, we'll also do like a currently inked at the beginning of every month. I've been trying to do more highlights at the end of the month. using these blank pages between the month. And so I've been playing around with it, but I'm really loving this. I've been super consistent with it since the beginning of the year. And so it's mostly filled out since January 1st, and it's super fun. It's becoming super fun to flip through, and I can't wait to see it fill up. And then I'm using the monthly pages to record the media I'm consuming and the books I'm reading. I also have a reading journal, which I will get to next. Again, I think about this journal as my archive, and I really want it to be a record of 2025 for me. And so I'm trying to put all of the what feels like important information to different aspects of my life in here. So this is working great for me. This is in the B6 size. I have this in a Moterm cover. This is the veg tan leather. I don't remember what color it is, maybe honey, maybe chestnut, but it's super soft. I love it, and it's very also spacious, so it feels like as this B6 notebook starts to chunk up, I am not at all worried about it not fitting in this cover. So that's my main journal, and I'm in here almost daily. I really only miss pages when I'm traveling, or if I've, occasionally if I've had a super long day and I just don't pick up my journal, but I'm really consistent in this, and it's been really fun to get back into a daily journaling practice and to see this daily journal fill up. The next journal that I have been most consistent with is my reading journal. This is a A5 grid notebook from Sterling Ink. I ripped out some pages because I know I'm not going to stay in this book until I completely fill it up. And so I have been ripping out a few pages here and there to use as scrap paper and other notebooks, knowing that I will probably end up moving out of this at the end of this year. So this book is getting a little heavy, although it's a lot of fun. I've been in this reading journal since the end of 2023. So there will be 3 years worth of reading in this book, and it's been really fun to see this fill up, and I'm doing really well in terms of meeting my reading goals, having a lot of fun with reading again this year. I've been pretty consistent with this. I usually update this once a month. I will sit down and print out book covers, and I get these graphs from Storygraph, their monthly recaps, and then we'll go through and update the other trackers. I'm planning to do a longer flip through of this as soon as I update it for June. I want to do sort of a mid-year reading journal update, and so stay tuned for a longer flip through of my reading journal. But this is working great for me. I should mention I have a longer setup of this reading journal film that I will link down below. So that's my reading journal. And now let's get to my other journals that I have been playing around with and trying to figure out how to make work. Okay, so these first 3 journals are ones that I feel like I've figured out and I have been using pretty consistently. So the first is this ink journal. This is an A6 grid notebook from Hobonichi. This is some of the older Tomoe River paper, and it's just been so fun to use and so consistent. I'm really hoping they figure out their paper issues next year. And so I'm using this just to swatch all my fountain pen inks. I've gotten really into fountain pens over the last few years and have accumulated quite the collection, especially of ink samples. I don't have that many ink bottles, and I'm trying to keep it that way. I'm trying to be really intentional and deliberate with the ink bottles that I pick up because it's a lot of ink. But I swatched all of the ink bottles I have, and then I also swatched all of the ink samples I have, which has gone a little out of control, but I find this swatching process to be really helpful in terms of remembering what I have and it really encourages me to branch out and use different colors and use the ink samples I have. And then I've also set up in the back just a place where I'm swatching all of my fountain inks. I used to try to do this by month, and I realized that I was forgetting, but B, some of my fountain pens I will use over multiple months with the same color. Like my Pilot Vanishing Point with the Sailor Blue Black, I have this combination all year round. I don't need to swatch it every month. And so what I'm doing is I'm only swatching this when I have a new pen and ink combination. If I've never swatched that pen, I should swatch it. If I've never swatched that ink, I should swatch it. And if it's a new combination, I will swatch it, but I will not swatch the same pen and ink combination. And so then I thought it would be fun to get a sense of like over time, over the year, to get a sense of, you know, you can see how different inks are performing and which inks I'm using. So this is my ink journal. I update this as I get new inks and as I ink up new fountain pens. And it lives on my desk as a reference tool for when I'm inking up my fountain pens and I want to pick a new ink to use. So this is going really well and it's been a lot of fun. Next up is a journal I won't spend too much time on. I labeled it F this shit because, you know, life is hard. And this is the place where all of my messy emotions and ranting and venting and working stuff out, journaling goes. I also use this for therapy notes and therapy homework. This is working really well for me and I like having it in a separate place. I still want to be able to reference it. Like, I'm not the type of person who will throw this out or will color over it because I never want to encounter those journal entries again. But I like having them in a separate place so I can encounter them very intentionally. And I have this in a cover from Bujo Planner. This is working well, and I should say also, sorry, this is a just a blank grid notebook from Sterling Ink in the N1 size, or like a standard traveler's notebook size. So this is an olive traveler's notebook, and here I have set up my commonplace journal. I have always wanted to set up a commonplace journal, but I've been really intimidated by the idea of it. But I love note-taking, and I do this type of note-taking all the time, just in other journals. And I don't know, something recently clicked for me, like how nice would it be to actually just have all of those notes in one place to be able to flip through. And so I've been working on this over the last few months, and I think once it's a bit more filled out and I'm in a more consistent rhythm with it, I'll film a separate video about this commonplace journal. I should mention that the setup is very much inspired by Linda from Linda Loves Creating, especially her use of these dot stickers to denote different categories of things in my commonplace journal. And so I have notes from books, some just miscellaneous quotes. I wrote out some poems, quotes. I started writing out notes from, again, a book I read. I wrote out some notes from a podcast I was listening to. This morning there were some really crappy Supreme Court decisions. I'm filming this on June 27th, and so I started to write out some of Sonia Sotomayor's dissent in the birthright citizenship case, and then I left myself a note on a sticky note about other dissents I wanted to write in my commonplace journal. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see this fill up. That's my commonplace journal, and I just have this in the olive traveler's notebook, which I love, and I just love an excuse to use my traveler's notebooks. And speaking of an excuse to use my traveler's notebooks, I have set up another traveler's notebook. Like, I have a couple in my collection that I just won't let go of. Like, I just love traveler's notebooks and I move in and out of them for journaling and planning purposes. But I set this up as a creative journal. I haven't really used this at all, but I have intentions. You know, I really want to get back into painting this summer. I've been really inspired by junk journaling videos on TikTok and YouTube. And so I've set this up as what I'm calling a creative journal. I have in here a watercolor insert from Traveler's Notebook where I just started swatching some of my watercolors. And then I was watching some tutorials and I thought it would be fun to try and do to challenge myself to do more watercolor paintings over the summer. And then here I have just a blank insert where I stamped some of the Travelers Company stamps. They came to Penny Post in Alexandria, which is my local stationery store. If you were in the DMV, I love Penny Post. It's just such a cute, great stationery store with such great selection. And so they had the stamp caravan visiting, and so I went with my friend Melanie, whose channel I will link down below, and I decided to stamp this new insert with all of the stamps they had. And then I was thinking I would use this as just a creative junk journal, like a place to put receipts and other ephemera that I collect throughout life. And I have an entire little box sitting on my bookshelf with the junk I have the intention of posting in here, but I have not gotten around to doing that. It's been a busy month, but I'm really hoping this summer that I will have more time to start working on this creative journal, which I think has the potential to be a lot of fun, even though I've not really done much with it. But it's sitting on my desk and I am hoping to get to it. And then last but not least is my 5-year Hobonichi journal. I think I'm finally just going to call it quits with this. I have really tried to be consistent with it over the last 5 years. I started this in 2021, 2025 is the 5th year of this, and I have not been consistent with it since 2021. And it's fun to look back on 2021 because that was the year my son was born, but I just can't get in the habit of this, and I don't want to stress myself out about journaling of all things. And so as I was cleaning out my office, I came across a baby journal from Promptly that I picked up when I was pregnant with my son, when he was born in 2021. And I decided that I want to try and backfill this. This feels much more manageable and is really like the heart of what I was trying to do with this 5-year journal, even though I was doing it very imperfectly. It has a lot of pages for the first year of life. And if you are a parent or have been around infants, you know the first year of life is filled with like a bajillion milestones. And so in the first year, you have like monthly updates, and then after the first year it just moves into a 5-year-old. What's he like at 3 years old? I say he because I have a son, but you get the gist. And so I have most of this information for some of these pieces somewhere, including this journal and other journals. And so I thought it could be a fun project to go back and fill this up, even if I'm not able to fill it all up, and then keep going with this. This goes until child's 18th birthday, and this again just gets at the heart of like what I was trying to do with the 5-year journal, but much more just focused on my son, which is really like what I was trying to keep up with the 5-year journal for, was to do memory keeping for him. So yeah, these are all of the planners and journals and notebooks I am currently using, or I have set up and have intentions and aspirations to use. Overall, the system feels like it's working really well for me, especially my planning system and like my core journaling system. But yeah, if you've hung out with me this long, thanks so much for spending some time with me. And if you have any questions about where anything is from or how I'm using any of these books, please leave them down in the comments below, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye now.